What is the Hot Breath Podcast? Only your weekly guide to comedy mastery. Ding! Pretty much what Hot Breath has evolved into, and this is something younger comics and just younger people, or just younger people on their endeavor, not even age-wise, but just younger people pursuing whatever passion they have, is like just the evolution of an idea. And like Hot Breath started when there were 10 comics from Atlanta on Last Comic Standing on NBC. Comics from Atlanta won it 2 years in a row. So I was like, oh, Atlanta comedy has something going on here. So I interviewed those 10 people, and then I kind of took a break with the podcast. And then I started to overthink it, so I just started interviewing comedians, and then it evolved into me interviewing just Atlanta creatives, and now it's come full circle back into just like comedy education, period. And the podcast is really for comedians, but also comedy fans that enjoy hearing the behind the scenes and like kind of how the sausage is made and like the craft side of comedy that people don't get to really see or hear about. But it's all comedy education. I'm interviewing comedians, bookers, agents, all with the mission of just getting as much insight as possible from people. So the whole mission with creating an engaged community that's kind of like a town square for comedians and comedy fans to connect is when I hear my guests reach back out and be like, dude, I had like 10 people reach out after your interview was posted, saying how much they enjoyed it and how much they learned and just thanking me for being on the show. That's what motivates me. That's what keeps Hot Breath alive, is the community that's developing around it. Starting the podcast, I didn't even have my own equipment. I was borrowing equipment. They were also an audio engineer, so I was getting insight into how to even edit audio and put together episodes and things before I even owned equipment. So it's been a learning curve for sure, but I would recommend anyone that is doing a podcast to learn how to do it themselves. So when you do outsource any job, you can at least competently illustrate what you want them to do. Because if you just tell someone to blindly go do a job, I've just learned from experience that it can go sideways. Notable guests on Hot Breath, Bo Burnham was probably a big one. And the crazy one about Bo Burnham was that his people reached out to me. That was another milestone in the podcast where I was like, oh, people are noticing. You can get kind of tunnel vision on what you're doing and just think it's just you. And like you think it's awesome, but it's all perception. But then his people reached out about doing an interview to promote his movie 8th Grade while he was in Atlanta. And I was just like, whoa, this is a new level. And just one of those moments in your career that's like a tent pole that like, okay, that'll carry me for another couple of years knowing that this happened. Well, the process, I've calculated I've spent up to 15 hours on a single episode, from finding a guest, booking them, travel, researching the guest, all the way through post-production. Like I've calculated 15 hours to do a single episode that lasts like an hour. A lot of the process is sometimes I get referrals, sometimes it's social media. A lot of the time, actually, what I'll do is I'll look to see when a comedian's going to be in town, reach out to them on social media. That has a high level of success, is just reaching out to people on social media. But a good way to book a guest is what's in it for them, really. Especially if you're going for more high-level guests, it's like, why would they spend an hour with you? But booking them is just half the process, really. Then you have to research the guest, which a lot of it comes down to also social media, diving into their social media. Also, I'm just giving away all the Hot Breath sauce. But you do it. That's what I love, just as a sidebar, that I love about teaching people like comedy and podcasting and pretty much everything I do and how I do it is because you still have to do it. Yeah. Everybody wants the sauce. It's like, okay, now you cook it. See how it works out. So it's all work at the end of the day. That's a big competitive advantage to anyone starting out that's wanting to excel faster, work harder than everyone else.